Hello everyone and welcome to the Wolfszeit channel. Today with a very special topic, always special. So today we are talking about the Skinny Mage build. There are some varieties to this. You can also use this build with Necromancy rituals, but this is optional, or you use that with Beastmastery and creature control. So it is quite OP, but it also needs a little bit of skill to actually play it. So for completely new players, it's not recommended. And you also need a decent amount of wealth to actually get all of that stuff. So when you're making this character new or you're using a reroll token, then you need to of course adjust some stuff. So when you are completely new to Mortal, I don't recommend this build to you. Unless you're having, for example, a guild in the background that you're starting out with, then it's possible to make that build. Otherwise, I really don't recommend that. Because for a completely new player, often the fighters are the most easy builds of them all, and these mage builds that are very specific is not for everyone. So you're taking the Alvarins, the Sheevras to be precise. So you need the age of 31 and you need the minimum size possible. For the weight, you should go down to skinny because you need speed, because you are basically a glass cannon. I mean, you have about 150 health at the start and about 170 health points in the end game. And again, there are some varieties to this build. This is just the most basic one. But the good thing on this build is you can just play it and adjust it. So for example, others have better experience with the Necromancy in there, so using it with Necromancy builds. There are also people out there who are trying to make these builds with humans and stuff, but we are not going into this. So when we look a little bit closer to the stats, of course you can also adjust some stuff there. This is basically the build with the mastery included, with all the Clade gifts included that you necessarily need to make that build. By the way, the link to that build is in the description. But with that character, you need to be very careful to not eat hits, because this is your nemesis. If someone can hit you, a dagger fighter or something, can stab you to death in a matter of seconds with this character, this is a problem. But when you're, for example, having a fully geared Thurzar or Ogmir, then this opponent is no problem for you. Of course, it also depends on the speed of the opponent, but most of the time for an Ogmir or a Thurzar, this build is a death sentence. I mean, at least when you look at from 1 versus 1. In group fights, this build is also usable, and this will be clear when we look at the skills. A little bit of armor training is necessary. Of course, you need Beastmastery because you will fighting with pets. Combat maneuvering is also a no-brainer. Creature control, of course, because you're fighting with pets. Defensive stance, any combat character in PvP ever need that in any way or form, unless you need other skills that are more important, but defensive stance is the most basic one. The skill dominate to get the good creatures, ecumenical spells to heal and make damage, of course. Then, of course, the Elementalism spells for maximum distraction. Endurance because of your stamina. Then the 1 point in armor training, it also depends on the armor you are wearing. It also depends on the money you have. Mental offense, of course, because you are a mage for maximum damage. Then the necromancy spells, potion utilization if you have the money for it. Sprinting, of course, vitalism, and all the other stuff is just professions. So this is completely optional. This is just a basic recommendation that you can at least make your own armor, because it's often very specific for this build. And if you look closer to that, I mean, this is a very good PvP gear. For example, Panzer Scales are very expensive. Also blood silk. It also depends on how wealthy you are or how wealthy your guild is. But it's basically one of the best materials in terms of weight to defense. I mean, Panzer Scales are one of the best mage armor materials. And when the Continent Sarduka will come out, then we will also maybe have the comeback of the crocodiles, and then you can farm Panzer Scales more easily. For the trinkets, you don't need the ultra expensive ones, but at least maybe some decent ones or some okay ones. But of course, the better your trinkets are, the better your gear is, the higher chance of survival you have. So maybe this is an awesome idea to invest your money in. So when we look closer to the Clade skills, it's quite simple. You're taking the Alvarin side, of course. You're taking the sprint damage, of course. Also the Alvarin Warcry, also the Alvarin side. But the rest is more or less completely optional. It really also depends on your personal playstyle, but the rest is really optional. But a skill like Runner's High is really recommended. You will also have a short overview over your spell damage. There's a lot of spells you can use, but it also boils down to your personal preferences. But for a lot of cases, you have the right spell to do stuff, or you have the right way to combat stuff. So for the masteries, it's also more or less a no-brainer. You need, of course, a few attribute points. Also improving the runner speed and the cooldown of your runner's high. And the most important stuff is also the not getting interrupted while casting a spell. So this is also very, very important. So for the whole mastery skill tree, I can say it's not so open. So you really need to skill stuff like that of course, you could skill other stuff, but it's really not recommended for this build. There are also other glass cannon builds. I've also made other glass cannon builds on this channel. The problem with these kind of builds is they really need skill to play. I mean, of course, you can learn to play with that character build, but it's very frustrating at the beginning because you will die a lot because you don't know which spell should I use. Should I now send my pet on attack? Should I now do this? Should I position myself in a group fight there or there? And these are all experiences that you need to make yourself to get better. And I highly recommend to you that you maybe also discuss this with your guild before you're making such a build, because it's very frustrating for the player when you not opt into 100% on such a build, because the very specific builds like these are not made for everyone. The thing is, they are very good at the specific stuff they are doing, but they are not all-rounders. So in some situations, you will maybe get angry about PvP balance and stuff, but it's basically paper, rock, scissors at some point. The biggest factor in all PvP ever is yourself. So this is the main factor why people are dying in PvP or why people are having success in PvP. It doesn't really depend on gear or builds and stuff. Of course, you have higher chance of winning. But I have seen so many people, even very skilled fighters with shit gear, who are killing mediocre fighters with high-end gear, so this is no problem. So this build is really recommended when you're going for the ultra high-end PvP game, and you want to play a mage, and you want to play a skinny mage because you want to be speedy. Nearly everything wants to kill you, and dagger fighters and archers hate you. So yeah, please leave your opinion about this build in the comments, would be very nice. And I hope you found this interesting. Then please leave a like and subscribe, would be very awesome. So special thanks to all of these supporters, of course: Carmel, Lucario, Mr. Minerva, Entire, Ronus, Partalax, Colombo, Log, and all the others, of course. And never forget to make Skinny Mage hard. I mean, make party art, make party art. And see you all next time. Goodbye.